Welcome to the Magic in the Cloud podcast, where exceptional visionaries reveal the personal journeys behind their remarkable success. This is a conversation with leaders who've transformed industries by navigating pivotal moments, making bold decisions, and cultivating extraordinary teams. We explore the turning points that define their careers, those instances where intuition met strategy and everything changed. It's an intimate look at the leadership philosophies that drive revolutionary outcomes, with cloud solutions as the quiet enabler. Here are your hosts, Joseph Griffith and Ryan Golombeski.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Magic in the Cloud. My guest today, three things stand out about him. One, he's a super dynamic leader and he's built a reputation on bringing bold ideas to life. He's known for finding a way to blend creativity and strategy across all kinds of industries. And he's got a voice that's very inspirational, very innovative, and really, for me personally, really charges me up for my own personal growth. With that, everybody, please meet my next guest, Brandon Lopez. Brandon, thanks, man, for coming on.
Thanks, Joe, for having me. Wow, that's quite the intro. I don't know if I even check any of those boxes, so thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, that's what I'm thinking. So yeah, super, you and I have a pretty, we could probably do a whole episode on how we got to know each other and how we got here, maybe for a later day. But I know my guests really get excited on how people get started. What are the kinds of things that happen to you, the people that you bumped into that encourage you on your journey. So before we dive into a little bit about what you do in the business world, share the story or two that come to mind on where you got your spark to jump into what you're doing these days, which I know is quite a few things.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I grew up in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. And so, of course, tech has always been really interesting for me, just given when I grew up. But I'm old enough where I grew up right when the Dotcom thing was getting big and also getting small right after quickly.
Yeah, I was part of that.
Yeah. So, being in Silicon Valley, being around tech, I was always interested in that sort of, space. And wow, I mean, my journey, I'll get into it now or later, but I mean, a lot of twists and turns. But I think at the end of the day, you just meet some really great people along the way and you work with some really cool or exciting technology pieces, right? Whether it's when the iPhone came out or now AI or right when websites were launching, in the 90s. I mean, those things are hard to resist. I mean, if you're a young person and you're interested in, a rapidly changing world, how do you not get pumped up for that? And then you got to meet people along the way that help. And you have to have some talent, hopefully, as well.
Yeah. So being in the right place at the right time in San Fran and the tech explosion was certainly the non-people side of it. How about we stay with, of all those wonderful people, how about a person or two that you encountered that really got you down the journey that you're on?
Yeah, I mean, I can think about three people in my career that have been really helpful at different phases, which is cool. So, and I don't know exactly what audience is going to listen to this. Hopefully we get some marketing people and hopefully some young marketing people that are trying to figure out what to do with their career. And it's a little scary out there with AI and all these research reports that are coming out. How do you get a job in tech when you're 22 and AI does a lot of your work? But that's kind of my first person was I was in that camp. I, went to a good college, but, it wasn't Stanford and I wasn't a computer science grad in the 90s. And, but I did realize I said, you know what? I've just got to get my foot in the door at one of these big tech companies, get that logo on my resume, and then I think I can make it. And so for me, it was Oracle back then. And the woman, they were looking for a customer marketing role, working with customers, writing, interviewing, that type of thing, which I love to do, but still actually. And she met with me and we just clicked. I mean, my resume wasn't great. I didn't have anything, I wasn't an intern at Intel or IBM like a lot of people I was competing with. And we just clicked and she gave me an entry-level job at Oracle in customer marketing. And then, from there, I moved on to a bunch of different startups and big tech companies. But she was my first break. And, she was awesome to take a chance on me. And then fast forward, I don't know, maybe halfway through my career, there was another person I'm still working with today on my sidecar AI, one of the companies I'll talk about later that I'm the VP of marketing for as my night job. That's my night job company. Um, Rolf Bonsosen, he hired me at LinkedIn. And it was right when we launched the LinkedIn Sales Navigator product around 2012 ish. So he took a big chance on me because I just had some small startups. I did have Oracle earlier in my career on my resume, but I didn't really have, that's right when kind of social was really taking off, if anybody remembers that. And LinkedIn, I know, has always been kind of a weird place. Is it social? Is it not? But it's business social media really. And and so Rolf took a chance on me and hired me then. And then that changed, the trajectory of my career at that stage. So I'd say those two. And then I've kept in touch with a few of my other managers that have been really helpful. And, that's been great. I mean, I've known people for 20 plus years that I still talk to and ask for advice or text them about the Niners when your Eagles beat us, that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think we found that in common. I love the Eagles and you love to beat them. That's for sure. And I think one of the lessons I think I pulled out of, if people are listening and they hear the big logos, right, that you worked for, them like, oh, this guy, not that you're not smart, not that you're not qualified. But I think what you're saying, which I try and remind people all the time, is I think they say that still 2/3 of your jobs still come from your network and from networking, even in today's day and age. So that's a really big lesson learned, right? You could argue all day long whether or not you were qualified, but you met two people who could hire you, who connected with you. It was great. Um, so you hinted at some things you're doing now. And why don't we talk about those one or two or three? I lost count every time I learn something new every time I talk to you. But talk to us about the kinds of things you're doing, the impact that you're making, and then circle back to something you touched on. People are really, really big on AI, and I know that this is important to you. So what are you doing? And then relative to AI, share a little bit more about how you see it helping you versus, say, I know a lot of people, this is important to you, a lot of people are worried about knowledge workers, jobs fading. And I think you are on the same page. We don't necessarily believe that's true. So if you could talk about what you do and how you're addressing AI in the workforce, that would be super cool.
Yeah. So let me make a really long story short, right? So 20 years in tech marketing in the Bay Area, LinkedIn, Salesforce, and then some smaller startups and SMB companies too. And then 8 years ago, I was a little burnt out in tech and tired of the long commute. I had a son who was little. I wasn't seeing him very much. And I just turned to my wife and said, I think, can we go out on our own and build our own marketing agency? My wife had actually started it. And I said, can I join you full time at this marketing firm, Persimmon Marketing, and help you grow it? And this was 8 years ago. And we said, yeah, we can, but not in the Bay Area. So we packed up with the young child and we left the Bay Area to become entrepreneurs. And I was 40 years old at that point. And I had a kid and a wife and bills to pay. And we took the biggest risk of my life. And uh, in hindsight, was it the best thing to do when you think about, I mean, anyone who's ever run their own business, even if it's a side hustle, I mean, the ups and the downs, getting started and surviving. And then we had the pandemic to deal with. And then, I mean, there were so many things that we've, knock on wood, overcome that in hindsight, it's almost pretty nutty that when I think about it. But so the point is I became an entrepreneur in my 40s and I had never done that. Already always been interested in it, but tech was a nice place to be for a long time. Um, so, now with Persimmon, we work a lot with primarily startups and small businesses. I don't really like to work as much with enterprises and large companies. We can talk about that, but I just like to have an impact, and I feel like we can really have a big impact with the company on that front. Um, so we've been doing that, going through that journey. It's been great. Um, and then I don't know, about a year ago, Rolf, my old boss from LinkedIn, reached out to me. I noticed he had started up an AI company called My Sidecar AI, and I started using it. I was one of the early users a year ago, And I loved it. And I'd always been curious about Gen AI, right? I mean, I did a podcast actually 3 years ago on Gen AI, which is crazy if you think about it. Like there wasn't, there wasn't, it was basically ChatGPT wasn't even that big of a thing, if you can imagine that. So it's been really cool to see what's been happening and a little frightening, to be honest. We'll go there next because you had the question about knowledge workers. Um, so for me, it's been this really transformational kind of two sides to my career coin, right? Being in tech marketing for a long time and then being an entrepreneur and making all that work with the family. Um, so yeah, I mean, in terms of AI and knowledge worker, so again, I'm going to talk about it through the lens of a marketing professional right now. But I think some of these, I, okay, I think some of these examples can be applied to founders of startups, right, or small business owners. But primarily, I want to talk about marketing. Um, I think it's pretty amazing what we can do now using AI tools. There's so many good ones, and they're good at different things, which is a little bit challenging at times, right? Certain LLM tools are good at certain things, right? I've found images are easier to create in one and not very good in the other. Research in one is a little bit better in the other, et cetera. So, I think it's good to test out all these technologies if you're a marketing professional. And if you're young, I mean, in college, I mean, you got to become AI native. Like you've got to be an AI native person to get a job in tech right out of school now. I just saw the Stanford study just came out too, and they said even coders now have declined over the last couple of years in terms of being hired. And every company I was at in tech, I mean, coders, devs, they were number one at the company, right? They were like, no one would touch the devs. Well, that's changed in the last couple of years because of AI. Now, entry level. The cool thing about the Stanford study was it also showed if you're mid-level or experienced, actually, it's not impacting you. If anything, you have more responsibility because these companies are realizing they can do more with less headcount. They're not hiring as many people. So companies still need you. You're extremely valuable, but it's harder to get your foot in the door these days. And we can talk a little bit about some ideas I have for people, but that's kind of my high level take on it.
Yeah. So, well, foot in the door intrigues me. So let's put a placeholder there. But before we go there, let's go back to something that really piqued my interest, which was it's great that your wife is your biggest supporter. So if we think about people that influenced you, that's out of, a couple of bosses at jobs and then your wife, great to hear. However, you said that she said, not in San Fran. So what did that mean? Was that like my stereotype is expensive, but was there any, okay, it was, what was the motivation to not in San Fran? Go live on a farm and pay 1/5 of what you pay now?
So what people need to realize is 8 years ago, remote work wasn't a big thing yet. So actually, when we left to start Persimmon, remote work, remote work wasn't a big thing. Marketing agencies were still very traditional. And by the way, I worked with a lot of them at these tech companies. It's like you'd work with one and they'd run a pay-per-click campaign for you, or they'd help you build your website or whatever. They're pretty tactical, right? And so we were like remote work early. I was commuting 2 hours a day down to 0 minutes a day, spending more time. Because I always said, hey, if I can get 2 hours a day back, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to spend more time with my family. And that's happened. And I don't regret that at all. So that was a big thing. But we were also like, hey, how do we lower our cost basis? So we're still in California, but we're not in Silicon Valley anymore. Put it that way.
And isn't it amazing, Brandon, that it's only been 8 years. So like you said, if you're younger, right, the 18 to 24, you have no, this isn't a bad thing, just saying you don't have any appreciation for just 10 years ago. If you needed to, like you said, if you needed more time or lower your expenses, you physically moved, right? Today, not an option, but not really an obstacle, right? You could take the cool job in Idaho and work from PA or vice versa. That's fascinating, dude. That is really insightful. We forget that's how quickly things change now, right? 8 years ago, you'd have to physically move. That was the consideration. That's crazy, man. But let's go back to foot in the door, right? So now we're talking about younger folks. Okay, they have a few different type of obstacles to get in the door. I know when I was younger, it was, we're going to pay you 3 peanuts to work here. But yeah, talk about 1 or 2 or 3 things that if you were younger, what would you tell your younger self about getting a foot in the door these days?
Yeah, well, so I think about it when I was building marketing teams. You hired for a few different types of roles previously, right? You would hire, you'd usually have product marketing people that you have, right? That were product experts, know the customers really well. You might have customer marketing people that work with customers. You'd have social media people. You'd have demand gen people. You'd have all these different marketing functions. And you'd have marketing operations, they called it MOPS, just like you have sales operations. And typically, SOPs and MOPS people were a little bit technical and they kind of managed your tech stack. Now, if I was someone in college right now, I would want to become a marketing sort of AI tech stack person in college, which is use these tools, go start building agents. Even if you don't code, everybody talks about vibe coding. You can check that out and do a little vibe coding. I mean, you've got to be, because employers are even bringing this stuff in the interviews. If you can get an interview, they'll ask you how you're using AI and what tools you're doing and talk to me about the projects or the agents you built and what was the outcome. So, I mean, I think that's really cool. I don't think it's almost like the power of the Intel internship in the 90s to me. If you can go out and use these tools and build really cool AI agents and then get it in front of a founder that maybe doesn't have a job up on their website, send them a note on LinkedIn, try to get them to look at your agent or run it on their company and send them an output of it, for example. I mean, why would that founder not meet with you? Believe me, they'll tell someone at their company to go talk to you if you can do that. So that's where I'd start.
Yeah, and I know you may have other thoughts, but just pause on that for a second. I think that's a gold mine, which is because what I remember from the recruiting days when I used to own like staffing and placement companies. The best practice was, Brandon, when you go into the interview, act like you're already working there. After the interview, follow up like you're already working there. Dear Brandon or dear Joe, thanks for the meeting. I was thinking about that problem you mentioned. I did some research and have an idea. And we used to always say, it doesn't matter if your idea is right or wrong. The person that you're interviewing with knows that you don't have all the context, but they appreciate they're actually thinking about them. So you're saying if you proactively run an agent and then maybe whether you use that agent or not, do some other research on behalf of the company and then message the hiring person that way, a contact at Oracle or LinkedIn, how could they not want to talk to you? And I couldn't agree with you more. To me, that's the number one best practice for a foot in the door, which is find a way to act like you're already working there. That moves you to the top. Well, so thanks for sharing that, dude. That is like super. Do we get to charge for that?
Well, I mean, that's the other beauty. They might just pay you. They might just say, hey, this is a great agent you built. Can we just pay you for that and acquire your business? So there you go.
Yeah. So did you ever work for Oracle? No, but they bought my agent. I'd love that, dude.
These are the times we're in. I mean, we did not. Think about the dot-com boom. Even then, it would have taken a team of a few people, highly technical, to get anything off the ground in the early 90s. I mean, you couldn't do that.
Oh my gosh. Everything was 6 months. Everything. That's super. So I think we should stop the conversation right here and then publish this whole, that's the one secret sauce. Any second or third ideas? I don't want to make sure, I don't want to leave anything out if you think there's a second or third idea to help folks get a foot in the door.
Yeah. So I think there's another area. So if you're a marketer and you've got these sort of marketing ops tendencies, or you want to go build apps and agents, I think that's one way. I think the other way is the complete other end of the spectrum, which is around EQ, right? Emotional intelligence. Because right now in the future, AI, and this might not be that far away. I hope it is, but we don't know. It's all moving so fast. Soon bots are going to buy from bots, but we're not there yet, right? The CFO and the executive team still signs off on software purchases by and large. Now, AI might be making recommendations right now, but AI is not saying like, these are the 3 you need to look at and choose from them, and here's the best price. And we're not quite there yet, I don't think, from what I've seen. E-commerce is starting to kick in for B2C. where you can buy things directly from LLMs. But on the B2B side, people are still buying from people. But there's also this sentiment of quote unquote AI slop and bad marketing that AI is doing, right? So if you're kind of lazy with AI, it's got M dashes everywhere. People can just tell that they're calling it AI slop out there, on LinkedIn. And so you obviously don't want to do AI slop, but you don't want it to be obvious. For most companies, in certain industries, it doesn't matter, right? It's like if you're not doing any marketing and you're in an industry that doesn't do any marketing, your competitors don't market much, any marketing is better than no marketing, right? So there's certain sectors where AI slop actually works fine. But if you're in SaaS or tech, people are looking at that stuff and they notice. So one of the areas that I think is really important for any marketer, but especially young people could look at is, sort of EQ, emotional marketing. How can you be more empathetic? How can you really relate to your buyers in a better way? All of those quote unquote softer skills are still really, really relevant right now. In fact, maybe more relevant because people are using AI so much in sales and marketing already, and it's not completely effective. So I'd say focusing on, EQ is another good area, especially for people that come more from a psychology background, or maybe they graduate in PR and comms, those sort of fields. You don't have to be an agent builder, but I think it helps. And if you can marry agent building plus EQ, companies are going to be very interested in you at any stage of your career.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think that is awesome. How do you think the younger folks need help in better understanding EQ? I give you that it's a foot in the door. And I will tell you that as a product of, a guy who worked his butt off in the 80s, I was never allowed to show EQ, right? I just had to show that I was the fastest, the toughest, and the number one performer and all that good stuff. And it wasn't until 2001 or 2 or 4 where I could be vulnerable, and that attracted people. But we've had kids raised on, keeping their distance lately. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think emotional awareness, emotional intelligence, showing that you're vulnerable that's really the theme of a lot of these episodes I've recorded. I would say that's a common theme, that secret sauce. It almost feels like it's too good to be true, to be honest with you. So I don't know, do you have any advice on how to improve your EQ? I know that's an out of left field that might not be in your pay grade, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, the number one thing that jumped out when you were just talking about it, I mean, if most young people don't have high EQ right now, because everybody, my son's the same way. He's 12. He's on his phone all the time when I let him be on the phone, or he's playing video games. If all of your peers are doing that and none of them have high EQ, just by improving yours a little bit, by, getting out, networking in person, putting yourself out there with young people, playing sports and doing things that are outside where you're forced to, have social skills directly and make eye contact and nonverbal communication and, understand, like you look at someone, you can see when they're upset, like those things. If most kids and people are doing that well right now, just doing it a little bit better, you'll stand out, and then the other thing is there's college classes and things you could take. I mean, a lot of it's just psychology, and how people are kind of reacting to everything in the world. So there's classes you can take. I mein, just getting out, and we're both guilty of it because I'm in front of a screen or on the phone all the time, right? Just getting out, getting out in front of people, and that human connection is really important.
Yeah, I think you said it really well. I think there's always classes on something, so do that. And then you reminded me of what we used to teach the younger kids about, say, sports, which is, well, I'm never going to be a good dribbler. Like, that's not your job. Your job is to dribble for 20 minutes every day, and you'll be 10% better than the next person. And then you try to explain to a young person, if you're 10% better than the person next to you, you're a rock star. So like you're saying, you don't have to be an expert. You just need to be 5 or 10% better than the rest of your peers that are vying for those opportunities. Yeah, I like it, dude. Before we talk a little bit more about you, I want to go back to, I think it's I think it's my sidecar. Again, you do so much, might be my brain getting fat. But you have a concept on how you want to help companies like even the ones I represent. How do you got like a marketing in a box concept, and why don't we talk about that a little bit, and then we'll talk about who raised you and all that crazy stuff.
Yeah, so my sidecar AI, you did get it right. So, well, so here, let me give a little bit of context. So, I've been advising and now working with Rolf and the team for a year. I can't believe it's been a year. And when we started my sidecar, Rolf started it because he was trying to get to know AI and LLMs, and he hadn't done a lot of it, right? So he jumped in head first, and he's been a product marketing person, product manager in his career. So he just loved to get in there and play with all these LLMs and technology and tools. And he noticed he was doing the same things over and over and over again, and it felt really repetitive. For example, keep in mind this was a year ago. You know, LLMs have a really hard time with context. Have you ever had a session and then all of a sudden you ask it two questions in a row and the third answer is like doesn't make any sense?
Yeah, the hallucination, oftentimes they're called. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it just completely forgets, the context of the conversation you're having with it. So that still happens. That happened to me yesterday with one. So a year ago, that happened all the time. So when Rolf started my sidecar, the goal was how can you create a marketing strategy for your company, right? By analyzing things like your website copy and documentation, like data sheets or collateral, whatever you wanted to upload into the system. And then it would give you your strategy and deliverables, essentially. You could build tactical deliverables. So the goal was how do you balance marketing strategy with tactical execution? And the thinking was, man, it'd be nice if strategic marketing people could not be bogged down by all the details all the time. And can AI do that, right? Can AI blog for us, do social media, do email, do all this tactical stuff? So I can go figure out with the head of sales and the CEO, what are these new segments we should be going after, right? What new product features do we need? All the more strategic work. So that's what the goal was a year ago. I think what's been interesting in this last year is what we're seeing is marketers really like playing in these LLMs now. They like jumping in, collaborating. I've done it myself or with the salesperson, with the client. We get in and we're looking at positioning and there's a list of 10 and we don't like those 9, but there was one that we like. And then we drill into that one. And it's very collaborative, right? So these LLMs have gotten much better in a year. So where I think it's going, and this is kind of what we're testing now, is marketing in a box is a concept where essentially we could help you if you're not doing much marketing, you can't afford a marketing team or a marketing person or a marketing leader. Are there things we could run for you in an automated fashion that would get you into a good place marketing wise with very little interaction with you? So we still do things like analyze your website, analyze your documentation. We're talking about things like if you wanted to integrate your CRM data, we'd love to analyze that to see where there are potential issues, right? And then have recommendations for these are the marketing, strategies and deliverables. This is your go-to-market playbook with recommendations around what you should do. So we're not quite sure whether the future is this recommendation engine based on everything we can glean about your business from you and what's out there publicly, or if the future is really this, most people just, they don't want to pay a lot for marketing. Again, this is for small businesses and startups, right? They're busy building the product of the startup and they don't want to spend that much on marketing. What if we could just run that for them with AI plus a little bit of services on the side to help things like, configuring a pixel on your website and, some technical things that need to be done like marketing ops usually does or sales ops. We would do that role as a service provider partner of my sidecar.
Yeah. So, and we'll talk about contact info later. And let me give you my, how much I appreciate what it is you're trying to do. I think in the marketing world and, in the past, it was maybe HR. just over the years, there were certain business functions that were like left behind, right? And marketing struggled with this. Well, they're not really a money maker. And I did not agree with that. I felt like marketing's job was to let me know whether or not the prospect in front of me was 20%, 40%, or 80% sold. So I knew where to spend my time. But what I found over the years is marketing was one of the hardest things to describe. And I saw something a long time ago and they put it in 9 sections. I'm like, okay, good enough for me, 9. Then it would explain the 9, like what is branding versus lead gen versus whatever. And then all of a sudden people are like, oh my gosh, this is so much, right? So I think people didn't know how to break it down, didn't know how to explain it. And then if you can't explain and understand the 9 steps, then no wonder you're not going to invest in it, right? But I see you saying, hey, Mr. Small Business Owner, for a modest amount of money, and a lot because AI is helping me get a lot of work done, I'm offering you, marketing as a service, right? You're going to my sidecar, and kind of dig in this way if you need strategy, and dig in this way if you need like you said, if you need a pixel fixed on a website. And I think that'd be huge because that to me is the challenge with most super small business owners. They just don't really understand how those, let's call it 9, how all those 9 parts play, right? Do they have to all be at the same level all the time? Can you push one a little further and back off? And in the end, how can you ensure that investment tells my sales team, this is how far along you are in the sales process? So I think great idea, man. We'll capture the contact info before we conclude our conversation. So let's do I'd always like to start with the personal stuff a little more, but that's how I'm coached to do the business side first. But we touched on a little bit. I'm certainly intrigued, to give your wife a hug whenever I meet her for moving you to Texas. But let's go back a little bit and talk about, you mentioned these people that you met on your journey, but let's go back a little further. You're born in San Fran. Talk to me about on the personal side, some of the people or experiences that influenced you as a person.
Yeah. So we're actually still in California. We're just in Central Valley, California. So I grew up in the peninsula, which is the Palo Alto area. My dad worked for Xerox, went through the training program, all that. Xerox was great. He was from New Mexico. My mom was from Utah. They didn't have big networks themselves, but Xerox was such a great machine back then it had just the best training in the business when my dad went through it. So, and my dad was more on the sales side. And so I remember my dad was always on the phone and, I kind of thought he sounded salesy, but he was just a salesperson, right? So he was always very professional, and very, very polite all the time on the phone. And, so I was always kind of watching him and my mom was like the opposite. She didn't know what the heck she wanted to do. She was trying everything. She was a court reporter, then she was, a paralegal and, and then she eventually found her passion and her fit around landscape architecture. She's a really good designer and really good at picking out all the right plants and all that stuff. So but she figured that out, I think, in her 40s, maybe even later, late 40s. And so she's been doing that and love that. So, for me, it was always my parents. And then once you get into tech, I mean, there's so many luminaries and people to look up to. And I remember at LinkedIn when we had launch meetings with Jeff, the CEO at the time. I mean, we were in the room with the guy and we were all kind of just sitting there. He even made a joke our first meeting with him for the Sales Navigator launch because our team was there and Rolf was experienced enough to not be starstruck, but the rest of us were pretty young marketing people. We were all just sitting there and Jeff started laughing at us. He's like, guys, it's okay. Let's just talk business. You don't need to stare at me. This is making me uncomfortable. So, a lot of my personality has been shaped through, tech. And, it hasn't always been the best tech leaders all the time, but I feel like I've been lucky enough. Whereas, I had my parents, I played a lot of sports growing up. I had some great coaches and I had some really good professionals. And then when I went out on my own with my wife in Persimmon Marketing, I mean, we had some really great clients. We got lucky. I mean, honestly, I think, for agencies and any work, right, consulting, I mean, to me, it's almost the personality fit's the first thing I look for now. It's not even what they do. It's just like, do we click on a personal level? Do we want to work together? I mean, all of our clients are multi-year clients, and I've noticed anytime we take on a project where I'm not quite sure if it's going to be a fit, and by the way, I tell clients, you might not like me. It might not be a fit either way, and that's fine.
Oh, I say that all the time. I say that all the time. In the end, my job is to figure out who has to get the job done. That has nothing to do with who they like the most, right? And if they like you the most, then you're writing the email. If they like you the most, then you're carrying the bag, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I feel fortunate that we've had some really, really good clients that we've had for a long time and are good people.
So I have one comment, one question, and one piece of advice based upon those three groups of people. The comment is on your leadership guy, Jeff from LinkedIn. Funny, I've done a lot of research on what leaders look like, what's an ideal leader? And you can come up with 50 attributes all the time, but the top three that always stand out: you believe he or she has a plan. You have confidence he or she can execute the plan. And always, like, what's the third one? It's what you just described. Does the leader have compassion for all the stakeholders? So for him to look out there and go, come on, you guys, stop drooling all over me. Like, make it like, come on, I feel you, but let's get past that, right? That's my comment. My question is regarding your parents, and it's easy to say it's rhetorical. My question is, have you had a chance to, or do you ever had a chance to tell them thanks? Because it's clear that a lot of those gifts that you have came from them.
I try to. I try to do that, but I actually have more fun being around them when their friends come to visit. And then this is what I used to do all the time, especially when I was in product marketing. And they would try to tell their friends what I did for a living, and it was awesome. I loved listening. It's a fun thing. Have your parents try to describe what you do in front of you to other people, and the things they talk about. I was like, it's like, that's not what I do at all. What do and you don't want to embarrass them in front of their friends.
Dude, your parents, sometimes I wonder if my wife can still articulate what I do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I remember my favorite was I write technical manuscripts. I don't even know what that is, but I was like, and then you play into it. Then it's like, I love technical manuscripts. I write them all night, and it's my favorite. Like,
Yeah, that's what I do. That's so great. And then here's my advice. I'd be interested in the feedback, and I'll tell you, I'm already going to place the bet on you. So when you said, like, I appreciate your modesty around your initial clients. I think that's so important to do that. We started a business back in 2007, and the economy went into recession like 6 months later. We had a few clients, and we used to say forever, like, thank goodness we had those clients. And one day I just went back and said, almost verbatim, thanks for throwing us a bone, right? In the old days, you say, like, hey, you gave us a couple of dollars to keep us employed. You should go back and go back to those 2, 3, 4 clients and say, I just want to thank you for, investing in us back then. And I even said, throw us a bone, like, do us a favor. Like, you could have given another 500 grand to somebody else, right? Whatever. And you know what the client said to me? Joe, he was almost insulted. He said, we did not throw you a bone. It was a good investment by insert company name to invest in your firm. So stay modest, dude, but take a few minutes to reach out to those couple of folks and say, I always feel fortunate, and see what they have to say. I would bet all day long to be like, are you kidding me, dude? We knew it was a good investment in Brandon Lopez and his wife and your family and your biz.
That's a great tip. I do feel like I don't do that well enough because you just get so busy with client work, and it's just, you just forget to take that time, especially if you're not traveling as much. Some of my clients, we do annual meetings, and we do strategic planning together, which is nice in Q1, and you get a chance to go meet them and have dinner and drinks, and you're in person, which is great. Actually, when we saw each other, whenever that was, a little over a year ago.
Yeah, you never know. It was awesome out of nowhere. You came up and found me at the partner meeting. That was great. So I want to wrap up with before we talk about how people can track you down. Let's get to the last question, which is what's goofy about Brandon Lopez, but doesn't necessarily have to be goofy. But what might people be surprised to find out about you?
Oh, wow, that's a good one.
Besides writing technical manuscripts.
I like playing pranks on my parents in front of their friends. No, I think, people are always curious about my background, right? Because, they can't quite tell what ethnicity I am. And this just came up at my daughter's school. The mom was trying to figure out what I was. It was great. I'm like, what do you think I do? And she's like, my husband and I think that you're a finance guy. Are you in finance? And I'm like, no, not at all. I do have my own marketing business, and maybe maybe it's the way I dress, because I used to work at a golf course in college, and I like polos and more comfortable pants. I think that might be a part of it. No, but for me, I mean, the fun fact about me is, I hinted at earlier, my dad is from New Mexico, my mom's from Utah, and you can tell that. I mean, that's just a huge clash of cultures that they overcame, and that's why I'm here. And so I just feel really lucky for everything those two had to go through, for what my brother and I had, which was honestly a very great time to grow up in the Bay Area in the 90s. And then, we were there for the first technology booms, which we were really lucky in. And I feel like right now there's another one happening, right, with AI. And I hope it works out for all of us in terms of, job opportunity, and, young people can graduate and get jobs, and, marketing people can work with more clients, and these companies can do a better job of selling and marketing, what they do.
And I appreciate all that you offer to the marketplace, your experiences, especially thanks for spending some time talking about how younger folks could get their foot in the door, focusing on not just the skill set, but some of the emotional side of it. I think that's really, really important. And I think the last thing I wanted to comment was, maybe it is the way you dress, or maybe it is, the slightly gray hair. But what an interesting psychology project, right? To say, based upon the way this person looks, we've been so sensitive to talking about that the past few years. It might be a nice icebreaker just for fun to say, what's this guy look like, And, but it goes to the psychology of things, right? Like, how do you interpret how people present themselves? I think that'd be fascinating. I went for a woman that was helping me with like equilibrium and all that, and she said, "How tall are you?" And I said, 6'1" in the basketball books, really 6'3". She goes, "You're really 6'2". I go, "Oh, please." And she said, "Do you know that when you walk in the room, you walk in like leaning forward in attack mode?" I go, "You gotta be kidding me." She goes, "That's how you look to me." I'm like, "Come on!" I fight that all the time, not to look like I'm too bossy. She goes, "You walk in the room like this, so you lose an inch." Okay. I'll try and sit back more often. So, Brandon, how can people track you down? How can they get a hold of you? What website, or LinkedIn, or contact info?
Yeah. LinkedIn's probably best. I mean, so Brandon Lopez, Persimmon Marketing, or my sidecar AI should come up on either of those. We've got websites for both of those companies. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. Find me on there. If you're in the Bay Area, I'm going to be up at Dreamforce, Salesforce's big conference in October, with a client. We're going to be up there for the Tuesday and Wednesday that week. I think is that the 14th and 15th? I need to look at my calendar, but going to be around for a couple of days. So if anyone wants to connect, grab a coffee, grab a beer, ask me any questions, what we do, how I can help. I always love to meet new people. And so try to track me down in October in the Bay Area if you're there.
Thanks for being so receptive and offering your time. I appreciate it, and knowing my guests too. This has been awesome, dude. Every time I talk to you, it's awesome. I'm glad we had a chance to capture some of your cool ideas and your advice. So thanks for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. Always entertaining. Thanks for having me.
For sure, man. This brings us to the end of another episode, and we'll see you on the next one, Magic in the Cloud.
Magic in the Cloud podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.